My beloved child, hold your thoughts for just a moment, because something hidden beneath the surface of your story is beginning to reveal itself. You may have asked yourself the same question more than once. Why does this connection feel so real, yet so complicated? Why does your heart sense warmth while your mind keeps finding unanswered questions? What if neither feeling has been lying to you? What if the truth has always been standing quietly between certainty and confusion, waiting for the exact moment when you were finally ready to see it? Do not rush away from this moment. The next few minutes may cause you to look at someone's actions through an entirely different lens. There is a man whose heart carries genuine affection for you. Not shallow fascination. Not passing curiosity. Something deeper. Something that has survived distance, silence, hesitation, and countless moments when speaking honestly would have been easier than pretending everything was normal. Yet there is another chapter to this story. A chapter he has never fully understood himself. Because while his feelings for you continue to grow, another woman remains connected to his present life. She exists within his world. Not necessarily because love continues to flourish there, but because unfinished responsibilities, familiar routines, old promises, or emotional history have built walls that seem impossible to move overnight. Life is rarely divided into simple answers. Sometimes hearts know where they belong long before circumstances allow everything to change. Pause for a second and imagine standing at the edge of two different roads. One road is familiar, predictable, safe because every step has already been walked before. The other road leads toward a future that cannot yet be seen. Which path would most people hesitate to choose? That hesitation is not always proof of a lack of love. Sometimes it is proof of fear. Fear of hurting others. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear of losing everything while reaching for something greater. The strange part is this. You have probably sensed pieces of this already. Perhaps there were moments when his attention seemed completely focused on you. Then suddenly he became quieter. More distant. Harder to understand. It felt confusing, almost as though two different versions of him existed at the same time. What if they did? One version was speaking through his heart. The other was speaking through the weight of everything he believed he could not immediately leave behind. This is why the story has felt so unpredictable. Not because your intuition failed you, but because two realities have been unfolding at once. Here is something many people never realize. Love does not always arrive at the perfect time. Sometimes it arrives while lives are still untangling themselves. Sometimes it appears before difficult conversations have happened. Sometimes it enters quietly while old chapters are still waiting to close. That does not automatically tell you what the ending will be. It simply explains why the middle of the story feels so uncertain. Think carefully. Have you ever noticed how certain people continue crossing your thoughts without invitation? Days pass. Weeks pass. Life becomes busy. Yet somehow their presence returns in unexpected moments, as though an invisible thread refuses to break. Those moments often invite reflection rather than conclusions. Instead of asking, "Why is everything taking so long?" Ask a different question. What is this season trying to teach everyone involved before the next chapter begins? The answer may surprise you. Growth rarely happens while everything feels comfortable. Transformation usually appears inside waiting seasons. Inside unanswered conversations. Inside quiet moments when patience seems harder than giving up. And this is where your perspective begins to matter. Because your future should never depend on chasing uncertainty. It should depend on becoming the strongest, wisest, and most peaceful version of yourself, regardless of how another person's journey unfolds. Notice the difference. When your focus shifts from fear toward clarity, everything begins changing. Your words change. Your confidence changes. Even the energy you carry into every room becomes different. People notice. Including those who have been struggling to make difficult choices. There is another detail you have not considered. The other woman in his life is not the entire story. She is only one piece of a much larger picture. The real question has never been whether someone else exists. The deeper question is whether truth, courage, and timing will eventually meet at the same place. That answer cannot be forced. It can only unfold. And strangely enough, the people who discover the strongest connections are often the ones who stop trying to control every page before it has been written. So remain here a little longer. The next chapter uncovers what has been happening inside his thoughts while almost nobody noticed. You may realize that the silence was never as empty as it appeared. Wait, before your mind rushes to its own conclusion, there is another layer you have not seen yet. The most important battles are rarely the ones people speak about. They happen behind calm expressions, ordinary conversations, and quiet nights when no one else is watching. If you leave now, you may never understand why this story has unfolded the way it has. While everyone around him believes they understand his life, there is a conversation taking place that no one else can hear. It happens every time he finds himself alone. His thoughts move back and forth between what feels familiar and what feels truly meaningful. He has tried convincing himself that life should simply continue as it always has. Yet every attempt to silence what he feels only makes those feelings return with greater clarity. Have you noticed something unusual? People can hide their emotions from the world. They can even hide them from close friends. But they struggle to hide them from themselves. That is where his greatest challenge begins. The woman who remains in his life represents a chapter built over time. Shared memories. Daily routines. Expectations that have become part of his normal world. Walking away from any long chapter is never as simple as opening a door and leaving. Every decision affects more than one person, and he knows that. Yet another thought keeps returning. You. Not because you demanded his attention. Not because you tried to prove your worth. But because something about your presence awakened a version of himself he had almost forgotten. Around you, he imagines possibilities that once seemed impossible. Around you, he catches himself thinking about tomorrow instead of simply surviving today. That realization has changed him more than he admits. Still, change creates questions. Questions create hesitation. And hesitation often looks exactly like distance. This is why actions sometimes appear inconsistent. One day he seems completely present. Another day he becomes quieter, almost impossible to read. It is not always a sign that feelings have disappeared. Sometimes it is the visible result of an invisible decision he has not yet been ready to make. But here is something worth remembering. No meaningful future is built by rushing through confusion. The strongest foundations are created when people become honest with themselves first. That moment is approaching for him. Not because someone is forcing it. Because truth has a remarkable way of becoming impossible to ignore. Think about your own journey for a moment. How many times have unexpected delays later revealed a purpose you could not see at the beginning? What once felt like waiting eventually became preparation. What once felt like uncertainty became understanding. Perhaps this season is asking for the same patience. Not passive waiting. Active growth. Continue becoming someone who carries peace instead of fear. Continue choosing self-respect over overthinking. The clearer your own path becomes, the easier it is to recognize whether another person's path is truly moving toward yours. And here is an unexpected thought. Sometimes people believe love is about holding on as tightly as possible. Yet genuine connection often grows strongest when it is given space to reveal its own direction. There is no need to chase what is meant to arrive with honesty. There is no need to compete with another chapter that may already be reaching its natural conclusion. Your task is not to force the next page. Your task is to become ready for it. If this message has given you a new perspective, you are welcome to share your thoughts in the comments. Someone else may need these words today as much as you did. And if these reflections speak to your heart, staying connected by subscribing simply means we can continue exploring these meaningful journeys together. But don't leave just yet. The next part reveals the quiet realization that has recently begun changing the way he sees both his present and his future. It is a realization that may explain why small details around you have started shifting in ways that once seemed impossible to notice. One final thought: stay with this until the very last sentence, because endings often reveal what beginnings could never explain. Sometimes the greatest discovery is not about another person's heart. It is about your own clarity. And once that clarity arrives, nothing looks the same again. The story has never truly been about choosing between two people. It has always been about choosing between two futures. One future continues exactly as it has for years, guided by comfort, habit, and the fear of disrupting what already exists. The other future asks for honesty. Honesty that cannot be postponed forever. Over time, he has started noticing something impossible to ignore. Every attempt to silence his thoughts only brings them back with greater strength. Every distraction eventually fades, yet one question remains. What kind of life would feel true to who I am becoming? That question changes everything. Because people can ignore emotions for a while. They can delay conversations. They can postpone difficult decisions. But they cannot outrun the quiet truth that follows them wherever they go. This is why the atmosphere around him has begun to shift. He listens more carefully. He reflects more deeply. He notices small moments that once passed unnoticed. The future no longer feels like a distant idea. It feels like a decision slowly approaching. Yet here is the most important message for you. Do not build your happiness on assumptions about what another person may or may not do. Build it on who you are becoming. Continue creating a life filled with purpose. Continue protecting your peace. Continue becoming someone whose confidence comes from within rather than from someone else's choices. Ironically, this is often when life begins opening unexpected doors. Not because you stopped caring. Because you stopped letting uncertainty define your worth. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that fear no longer controls your thoughts. Imagine recognizing that your value has never depended on someone's ability to make a decision. That kind of freedom changes everything. Whether this connection grows into the future you once imagined or whether life gently guides everyone toward different paths, one truth remains unchanged. Nothing meaningful is ever lost when it teaches you wisdom, courage, and deeper self-understanding. Perhaps this message reached you today for that very reason. Not to predict every detail of tomorrow, but to remind you that your journey is larger than a single unanswered question. Every season has been shaping your character. Every delay has been strengthening your patience. Every unexpected turn has been preparing you for opportunities you could not yet see. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest surprise waiting ahead is not simply who chooses to walk beside you. It is the person you become before that moment arrives. Carry that thought with you. Walk forward without bitterness. Choose hope over fear. Choose wisdom over assumption. Choose peace over endless overthinking. Because when your heart is steady, you no longer chase certainty. You recognize it when it arrives. If these words stayed with you until the end, thank you for sharing this journey. If you would like to continue exploring thoughtful stories like this, you are always welcome to leave a comment, share this video with someone who may need it, and subscribe so we can meet again in the next chapter. Until then, remember this. The future does not belong to those who rush. It belongs to those who grow while they wait. And sometimes, that quiet growth becomes the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of all. One more moment, there is a final piece that deserves to be heard. Not because it changes the story overnight, but because it changes the way you will carry this story from this day forward. Sometimes the last page is not about discovering another person's decision. It is about discovering the strength that has quietly been growing inside you all along. Look back for a moment. Think about how much has changed since this journey began. At first, every unanswered question felt heavy. Every silence seemed to carry a hidden meaning. Every delay appeared to be a sign that something was slipping away. But now, you understand something far more valuable. Life is not asking you to solve every mystery before tomorrow arrives. It is asking you to trust your own growth while tomorrow unfolds naturally. There may come a day when this man gathers the courage to speak with complete honesty. If that day arrives, his words will matter because they are supported by clear actions, not because they are driven by temporary emotion. And if life unfolds differently, If another path opens that neither of you expected, that does not erase the value of everything this connection taught you. Every meaningful encounter leaves behind wisdom. Every season prepares you for another. Nothing that helps you become wiser, kinder, and stronger is ever truly wasted. Now consider this surprising thought. What if this entire experience was never meant to make you anxious? What if it was meant to awaken your ability to recognize genuine love from fleeting emotion? What if your greatest gift was not simply meeting the right person, but becoming the right person for the future that is waiting ahead? That changes everything. Because when you stop searching for constant reassurance, you begin living with quiet confidence. When you stop measuring your worth by someone else's timeline, your heart becomes lighter. And when your heart becomes lighter, you notice opportunities that fear once kept hidden. This is the kind of transformation that lasts. Not dramatic. Not loud. But deeply real. One day, you may look back on this season with gratitude rather than confusion. You may realize that every pause, every unexpected turn, and every unanswered question helped shape a version of yourself that was ready for greater joy than you could have imagined. So let this be your reminder. Keep moving toward your dreams. Protect your peace. Welcome people who choose honesty. Release the pressure to control every outcome. The future has a remarkable way of revealing answers at exactly the moment they become meaningful. If this message brought you comfort or a new perspective, you're warmly invited to share it with someone who may need these words today. And if you'd like to continue exploring thoughtful stories filled with hope, awareness, and inspiration, you can subscribe and leave a comment. We would love to hear what part of this journey spoke to your heart the most. Until our paths cross again, remember this simple truth. The right chapter never begins because you forced it. It begins because you were ready to receive it. Walk forward with confidence. Walk forward with patience. Walk forward knowing that your greatest days are still being written. This is not the end of your story. It is the quiet beginning of a future that is waiting to meet the person you are becoming.